This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome inside the studio. Maria Taylor alongside Mike Florio, Devin McCourty, Jason Garrett here with you to break down what we saw Sunday of Week 10. And let's start with the big comeback, because that's exactly what the Browns were able to do, down 14 points in the fourth quarter. And Deshaun Watson was a little hobbled because he injured his ankle earlier. None of that mattered. They got the win over the Red Hot Ravens.
It really is unbelievable. It was 14-0 right out of the gates, and it felt like it was going to be another one of these Baltimore home game blowouts like they did to the Lions, like they did to the Seahawks. But we see this from the Ravens. We saw it last year. We see it this year. They kind of lose a little something, and then when it's time to get it back, they just can't quite close the deal. But Deshaun Watson trying to will himself back to being the guy he was with the Texans. He's getting closer and closer if he can stay healthy. He was in a boot after the game, though, so we'll have to see if he misses any time or if he's limited at all. We went through the whole thing with the shoulder, and he missed some games. So just as they're starting to get moving in the right direction, maybe a setback, but 6-3, pretty good for everything they've been through.
Yeah, and I think Cleveland probably went in the locker room at halftime and said, hey, listen, we have a pass tipped up for an interception on offense. We give up a touchdown there. And then we had 3 trips to the red zone, and we don't score any touchdowns. We just need to start executing in the red zone, take care of the ball on offense, and we'll be right back in this game. And I think that's how they came out in the second half. The defense kept them in the game, continued to make plays, even sometimes on short fields or different things like that. They get the big turnover, the interception, the pick 6. Now you look up, it's a brand new game, and I thought the offense with Watson, they fed off of that, and they said, all right, it's our turn to go close out this game, and Watson made some big plays down the stretch.
No doubt. Really impressed with Cleveland's resilience all throughout the game. Come from behind, down 14 early, down 14 in the middle, down 14 at the start of the fourth quarter. Deshaun was not good early through the interception, and they just didn't have a lot of rhythm, but they just kept banging away. They kept banging away. They get the interception for the touchdown, and then Deshaun starts making some plays with his feet, and that's going to be the key for them. You know, he's such a great player when he's doing all of it. When he sits in the pocket just throwing it, he's good. But when he starts running around making plays with his feet, he is a handful. And we saw glimpses of that for the first time. Then Hopkins comes back and makes the game winner after he misses the PAT. On the other side for Baltimore, they're interesting. They were ahead in all 10 games in the fourth quarter. They've squandered 3 of those leads. I'm still very much on their bandwagon, but they got to find a way to finish these games.
Yeah, you think about maybe even the Steelers game, looking back at something like that. We know that the AFC North is just going to be wild. So these are some of the games that you should be able to win when you're up 14 in the fourth quarter. So what?
Not only wild, Maria, but really good.
Yeah, really good.
I mean, they're really good teams, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
So what are the changes or what does the Ravens need to be thinking about, you know, going into Week 11 or moving forward the back half of the season?
You know, to me, it's almost a mentality to put the hammer down. And I think that's one of the best things that John Harbaugh has done since he's been there. It's one of the best programs in the NFL over the last 15, 16 years. And it's just that mentality of finishing the job. And you learn from these experiences as you go. It's a new offense there, so they're probably still working through that. And now it's the game situations overlaid on top of that and the ability to say, let's do this. And to me, it always goes back to being able to run the football when you're ahead. That's been a staple for them through the years. They got to get back to doing that.
And I think they need to talk about that. Don't just say, you know, that's just happening. No, let's actually put ourselves in that position in practice. Let's come out and practice and say, hey, it's fourth quarter, everybody. This is the fourth quarter for our defensive side of the ball. This is the fourth quarter for our offense. Let's execute and run the plays that we're going to do in the game because we haven't done that. We haven't done a good job of that. Let's do it in practice, and then it will carry over into the game on Sunday.
It really is that killer instinct. I mean, 14 points isn't that big of a lead. It's 2 scores. And before you know it, it's gone. And I think the air comes out of the balloon. It's hard to pump it back in. They got the 14-point lead back. But, yeah, they've got to do what they did against teams like the Lions and the Seahawks, where when they're down, you got to deliver that third score, and you've got to make it something where they basically give up, and you know you've got the win.
Well, the Houston Texans, I can tell you, they are not afraid of the AFC North because they took on the Cincinnati Bengals and didn't blink, didn't flinch. C.J. Stroud, for the second straight week, we saw him just orchestrate beautifully a game-winning drive. I mean, he's a rookie. I don't know what y'all were doing when you were 22, but I don't know if I'd be able to do this. It's been very impressive to watch in his first season. It
has, and I think his leadership that, you know, we've continued to talk about all night tonight, each time he goes out there, this team fully believes in it. I think going against a team like Cincinnati, I thought their defense stepped up today. Yes, Burrow and Chase and these guys made some plays, but they made them make the spectacular plays to beat them. They showed up in the pass rush. Grenard, Will Anderson, they were getting to Joe Burrow, making it tough. Those guys are saying, hey, CJ, we know you're the guy. We know you're our guy. We're going to step up and support you and bring this whole team behind you so you don't have to go out there and make every single play. And when they did that, he said, you know what? It's clutch time. I'm here. I got us. I'll take us over the finish line.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and I'm not sitting here comparing C.J. Stroud to your old teammate Tom Brady, but when you had Tom Brady on your team, you guys knew you had a heck of a chance.
Yep.
So let's just do our part. And that can be contagious throughout a football team. And you said it. The defense made some huge plays at the end of the game. The biggest thing for them, for me, in this game was after Stroud throws the bad interception, they're up 2 scores, and now he gives Cincinnati a chance to come back. He didn't blink. He just kept going. He's thrown to Dalton Schultz. He's thrown to Noah Brown, guys we used to have in Dallas. He's making these guys believe in themselves, believe in each other. There's something special going on down there in Houston, and it's about that quarterback.
They're learning how to win, too. The last 2 weeks prove it. They had games earlier in the year that they could have won. They weren't able to finish the job. They've been able to do it each of the last 2 weeks. And I've wanted to know so much more about how C.J. Stroud is blossoming, and I wanted to find out from Tank Dell today when I spoke to him after the game about that. And the thing that really struck me was this idea that he's getting the phone and he's texting clips at 11 o'clock at night, at midnight, to his receivers of plays from the defense they're getting ready to face. So it makes a guy like Tank Dell say, well, hell, I better work too. And it's just accountability, it's leadership, it's contagious, and it just continues to build and build and build, and here they are in the thick of things in the AFC.
Do you guys get the text I send you guys of our clips from the shows? It's
do.
contagious. Just as a leader, I just want to make sure that you guys are following in the right direction. Thank you so much.
I'm going to start responding.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. On the flip side of that, well, now it's like 2 teams. If you think about the Ravens and you think about the Bengals and Joe Burrow throwing 2 interceptions, we saw Lamar Jackson do the same thing, but now these 2 teams meet on Thursday. I just think that that's such an interesting matchup that we get to watch.
I think the fact they both lost makes it even better because somebody's a little wobbly now. When they both were looking great, they're both a little desperate, especially with the Steelers still winning somehow and the Browns winning. You don't want to be the team that slips to the basement. The Bengals are there now. They could pull the Ravens down there with them on Thursday night.
And it's going to be interesting because you had T. Higgins didn't play this week. Jamar Chase played even though he had the back. That short week, sometimes those injuries that you're battling through, it's hard to play on Sunday and then turn the corner and be at full strength. So it'll be interesting how this kind of plays out with the top guys coming into this heated division matchup.
You know, John Harbaugh was talking this week about, hey, we know the AFC North is the best division. We know that. That's a given and has been for a long time. But I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think he's right. And these aren't must games quite yet, but they're getting close.
All right, let's talk about the Packers and the Steelers. And the Steelers just constantly finding a way to win. At the end of our highlight, we just saw Mike Tomlin tipping his hat. I was like, yeah, tip of the hat to you, because they continue to find a way to eke out wins. Sometimes I'm like, are they watching the other team lose, or are they forcing the win? Are they getting the win? But it's a little bit of both.
But to me, they're playing a lot better now. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but Matt Canada going from the press box down to the field, it just looks different. It feels different. You see him interacting with the players and how they respond. They're running the football. They rushed for 205 yards in this game. They're playing Steeler kind of defense, critical moments, 3rd down, red zone. They're making the stop. So to me, it's been more impressive the last couple weeks than it was earlier. Earlier was a little smoke and mirrors for me. Now, but they're kind of finding their identity as a team. If they keep it up, they're going to be a tough out themselves.
You mentioned it, Mike Tomlin. Let's give him some credit. You know, in today's society, when we watch football, we want changes made immediately if something's not working out. Mike Tomlin has said, Matt Canada is our offensive coordinator. That's not changing. I'm not talking about this. It is what it is. And I think that's what culture is. You build that culture. So the rest of those guys in the locker room, they're all in. They're like, Coach Tomlin said this. This is what we're doing. We're going to keep fighting and battling. The defense didn't turn on the offense or say anything like that. This team just kept playing. They kept finding ways to win. And you said it, Jason. Now they're looking better. And this team is continuing to just improve, but also win. Improve and win at the same time. And I think we'll be looking in the next couple of weeks of that's just Steeler football back. It's December. They're playing good football. They're giving themselves a chance to be in the playoffs and win games.
Just one thought on that. I know you're the Pittsburgh expert here, but that stability, Mike Tomlin provides it, but also the Rooneys provide that, right? 1969, they hired Chuck Noll. Okay, then they hire Bill Cowher, then they hire Mike Tomlin, right? It's 54 years. They've had 3 coaches. So that's what their organization's all about, and that's why they've been so good for so long.
One of the issues, though, with the offense this year has been the lack of an identity, the lack of a rhythm. But as we get to the colder months of the year, they're embracing the running game. And the way Mike Tomlin dealt with George Pickens, because George Pickens was clearly upset after the Thursday night game, during and after, and the next day when he went to social media. And by the time George Pickens met with reporters on Wednesday, he was like, I'm not upset about anything. Like, he got called to the principal's office, and Mike Tomlin told him this is the way it's going to be. And what do they do? Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Use them both. Run the ball. And Chris Sims and I talk about this all the time on PFT Live, and Chris is a believer that, yeah, the Steelers are going to win enough games to get to the playoffs, and they're going to get killed because they're not good enough to compete. But what's playoff football? Defense and running game. And if that's their identity offensively, they are going to be a tough team to beat when it's time to go to the playoffs if they get there.
Yeah, they've been outgained in every single game that they've played, but they're 6-0 in those single-score games, so they continue to find a way. Let's talk about the Lions and the Chargers. Completely different story. Plenty of offense to go around. It was a track meet. It was a fun one to watch, and it came down to a field goal.
This is the kind of game that Detroit played a lot last year. Their defense got better the last half of last year, but earlier, remember the games against Seattle? They both were in the 40s. It was just that kind of a deal. So I think it's important for Detroit to get back to doing what they do defensively, because they played awfully well the last year or so on that side of the ball. But Chargers played really well on offense. Chargers struggle on defense. I love the balance that Detroit has on offense. They have the best offensive line in football, and that's why they're a consistent offense. They can run it, they can throw it, they get it to different guys, attack different ways, and Goff is playing awfully well.
Coach, I agree with you. For this Chargers team, we expect a shootout when they play good offenses. We know that they have a good offense that they can score, but we know their defense really hasn't stopped anybody all year. For this Detroit team, this isn't going to last. You don't want to play in games like this. You don't want to play where you can't get a stop. The offense has to continue to score, run. You know, they ran for 200 yards and threw for 300 yards. That's not going to happen every week. They're going to play better football teams that are going to do a better job playing them defensively, stop some of the things that they do well. They don't want to end up in this kind of game. So I agree with you. They need to get back, figure out what they need to do as a defense. It was a big rallying cry last year. They got it done, gave themselves a chance to be in the playoffs. This year, they're going to be there. They're a team that has a chance to be a contender. You got to play good football on both sides of the ball if you really want to have a realistic chance to win a championship.
And it is alarming when you think about it. The Lions had a week off. The Lions have a Chargers team that played Monday night and flew from New York back to California. And to have the defense not show up in a game like that, and the Lions had the table set. They don't have a really tough game until Week 17 when they go to Dallas. They could be the 1 seed in the NFC, but you can't let yourself get into close games like this. It shouldn't have been that close. They should have been in the 30s, and the Chargers should have been in the 20s, and it shouldn't have come down to that field goal. And that's the kind of thing where you're going to lose one of those games at some point if you let a team hang around that you should be beating better than that.
I agree, but the last part of it, think about the maturity of the Lions over the last 3 years, right, since Dan Campbell has been there. They found a way to win.
Yep.
We agree they got to play better defense. They can't play that style of game week in and week out and expect to be there in the end. But they figured it out at the end. They make the 4th down. They kick the game-winning field goal. That's a sign of a good football team.
The key is improve, but win on the way.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, well, that's something that the Patriots would love to say that they've been doing, but they kicked off our Week 10 in Germany. It's the final game that we were having internationally this season, the 50th total in the NFL. But the storyline that we walk away with from this is Mac Jones is taken out of the game for the final drive. We see Bailey Zappi come in, and basically he's expected to orchestrate the 2-minute drill. Doesn't end well, but what does it say about the quarterback position moving forward at New England?
Every other time that Bailey Zappi had entered a game this year for Mac Jones, it had been a cause that was lost, and Bill Belichick quickly said, Mac Jones the starter. Today, Bill Belichick did not say that after the game. Now, there's a question of whether or not Mac Jones was injured, but it felt like a benching, and it feels like it's something that they're going to go into this bye week thinking about. Now, Belichick has to survive tomorrow first, and there's still a chance, although I think it's slim, that there's going to be a change tomorrow. I think he gets till the end of the season. But the quarterback change is something that it just feels like, based on what happened today, that's where it's going to go. And at some point, it could be Will Grier, not Bailey Zappi, that gets the nod.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see Coach Belichick being there throughout this season, no doubt about it. They have what a lot of people see as a bad team problem. When you don't have a quarterback that you trust to go and play a game all 60 minutes, there's really no solution for that. And I was just in the New England area this past week, and everybody keeps asking me, what should we do? I was like, what do you mean, what should you do? You should look at the stadium and see the 6 banners. Be happy. Be happy about that. But it's going to be a long season. Not much is going to change. This team went out there. You have a quarterback play almost 58 minutes of the game, and in the last 2 minutes, you decide to take him out. I'm not sure what you expected to happen in that situation, but an old Bill Belichick term, you got exactly what you deserve when you do that. And we saw the way that game ended with Indy getting a victory.
Okay, let's go back. This idea that they're going to make a move with Bill Belichick during the season, to me, is just unconscionable.
Yeah.
I don't care what the record is. I don't care what decision he made. It's unconscionable. Okay, over the last 22 years, this has been the model franchise in all of sports. You need to have some, there's some credibility there. Yeah. Okay, he should be able to weather a few storms. So let's start there. In terms of the decision, he knows the team. He knows the quarterback situation much better than any of us do. Okay, so you trust him on that. He's doing what he thinks is best for the team. Having said that, I just think it's a hard position to put Bailey Zappi in. You know, we were talking about, I was referencing guys like Don Strock, who played years ago. You know, sometimes there are these older veteran backup quarterbacks who get thrust into these situations. They haven't played in a while, but they're 15-year vets. And they're just comfortable figuring out how to move the ball in a 2-minute situation. Bailey Zappi is young. He hasn't played a lot of football. He hasn't been in these situations very much. And when you're a backup quarterback standing there watching for 3 hours and the coach says, hey, you're in, and oh, by the way, it's 2 minutes for the game, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, and I think we saw that today. So I was surprised by the decision, but all these big picture talks, I get why everybody says it because of the world we live in, but this is Bill Belichick. He's going to go down as the best one that ever did it. So to me, that stuff is ridiculous.
Let me just add one point, though, because I don't think it is ridiculous. When the Boston Globe is reporting it, that he could be out if he loses to the Commanders and the Colts, it's on the table. The Krafts are thinking about it. They've never been in this position. I think Robert Kraft is beside himself. He thought he was going to have a winner this year. He was on NFL Network before the game talking to Rich Eisen about it. You can see he's dismayed. He's never been 2-7. He's never been 2-8. So I think so. I mean, I don't think he's going to be back next year. The question is, how is this divorce going to happen? Is he going to fire? Is he going to quit? Is it going to be a mutual parting? I think they're holding out the hope that they're going to be able to trade him when the season's over. I think that's the biggest argument Robert Kraft now can make to keep him through the end of the year, because one of these other teams, the Buccaneers, who have an empty stadium now without Tom Brady, the Commanders, maybe the Panthers, David Tepper, who the hell knows what he's going to do? They're banking on the fact that no matter how bad it gets this year, one of these other teams is going to say, I'll give a draft pick to go get Bill Belichick. And that's the biggest reason why I think he finishes the season.
Yeah, and I don't know what the reality is. I'm just saying what should happen. Right. And the idea that Robert Kraft has never been in this situation before, no one's ever been in the situation that he's been in for 20 years. And the guy who's been the head coach there is a big reason why.
Well, it's the worst start for Bill Belichick since 2000 when he first became a head coach. So it's tough to weather all the storms that they're going through right now in New England. All right, it's that time of the day where we get some fantasy football news from Matthew Berry. Matthew, what do you got?
Hey, thank you, Maria. Look, you know what? Coming out of the bye, I think some of the big fantasy football storylines is what to make of the San Francisco 49ers, right? Brock Purdy had struggled before their bye week, and of course, the Niners filled with fantasy superstars. Could they get back on track? And that's exactly what they did. Deebo Samuel returned, Trent Williams returned, and what happened? Lots of fantasy goodness all around. In 6 games this year, with a healthy Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. He's back to being a low-end QB1 as long as Deebo is out there. Worth noting, Deebo, Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk all found the end zone. Pretty much everyone scored except for Chris McCaffrey. He actually had a fun quote after the game. He said, everyone scored but me. I kind of suck. Now, he was joking, but that phrase might somewhat apply to Tony Pollard. I'm not saying Tony Pollard sucks. Absolutely not. Tony Pollard is terrific. But he's probably feeling the way that Chris McCaffrey was joking, because in a game in which the Cowboys absolutely dominated the New York Giants, Tony Pollard had a career low 4.4 yards per touch. That's what he's averaging this year. He had less fantasy points than Rico Dowdle in this game. Tony Pollard was a borderline round 1 pick in most fantasy drafts. He went in the top 15 of every single fantasy draft. And yet, so far this year, he's running back 21 on a points-per-game basis. He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. The Cowboys put up massive points, did whatever they wanted against the Giants. Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jake Ferguson, Dak Prescott, Rico Dowdle, all these people scored. Tony Pollard could not get into the end zone, didn't get a lot of looks. So this is a concern if you have Tony Pollard. I don't think you can do anything. I don't think you can trade him, but you have to hope better days are ahead. They do play the Panthers, the Commanders, the Seahawks, and the Eagles. So at least the next 3 get a little bit easier when you try to run the ball if you're the Dallas Cowboys. But that's the one thing Mike McCarthy has to figure out is how to get Tony Pollard going because it's not working. They're only a pass-first team at the moment in Dallas and playing great defense. All right, here's what I have. It's that time right now. I have in my hot little hand today's DraftKings crowning moments. And did you know someone out there put $400 on Brian Robinson to be the first touchdown in that Commanders-Seahawks game. It was plus 1,300. Brian Robinson cashed $5,600 for some lucky bettor. A lot of names, you think about that Cincinnati Bengals game. You got Jamar Chase, you got Joe Burrow, you got Joe Mixon, a lot of big names. But somebody out there said, I want Trenton Irwin to be the first touchdown. I'm going to put $150 down on that. Well, that was at plus 1,800. That cashes at $2,850. And then somebody else put $50 down. This is an impressive one. $50 down on the Browns defense to be the last TD scored in the Cleveland-Baltimore game. That went off at plus 3,000. He wins, or she wins, over $1,500. A reminder, today on DraftKings Sportsbook, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $200 in bonus bets instantly, plus everyone can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every single day. Just use the promo code SNF when you download the app and sign up.
All right, back here in the studio, it's time for our speed round. And since we are in Vegas, kind of, you see the sphere over there, we're going to do a round of hold 'em or fold 'em, starting with the 49ers. When healthy, the Niners are the best team in the NFL.
Do we have to have our poker face for this? Do you have a...
Yeah, that's you every day.
When healthy, they are the best team in the NFL. The question is, can they stay healthy? This is a crew of players who will roll out of bed and run through a wall. Sometimes the wall wins. Sometimes guys get injured, and then you have to try to win games without your best players. But as long as they're healthy, they'll be fine. But that is a huge if. Yeah. We get to January, they've had their bye. You can have some guys banged up, and that could be the reason that they don't make it to the Super Bowl.
I agree with Florio. Mm-hmm. If they're healthy, they're the best team. We said this, was that 8 weeks ago? We were talking about how they're a complete team. Mm-hmm. That's why I didn't like Christian McCaffrey in there chasing a record. I get it. It's cool.
Sit down.
Get him out of the game. We need him healthy. He had a bunch of touches already in the game. Get him out because when healthy, they are the best team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would put Philadelphia right there with them with that same idea. When they're healthy, I think they're right there. I think they're 1 and 2 for me in the NFL. But you said it. It's a great question. I love the speed round. Mm-hmm. But that's a huge question when you build a team, right? Yeah. Can you handle the adversities of a season? Can you handle the injuries? Are you so reliant on one area of your team that if you lose that, can you keep going? So I think both teams are built well. I think for me, Philadelphia might be built a little bit better to withstand the injuries down the stretch.
All right, how about this? Josh Dobbs is going to lead your Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs.
Yes. Yes. Hold him, fold him, or just cash in, baby. Let's go. Double down. It's amazing how much better he was this week than last week. I asked T.J. Hawkinson how good can he be. He said the sky's the limit. So, who knows what they'll do. They've got the Broncos next week on Sunday Night Football. How could I forget? Then the Bears. Then their bye, then the Raiders. They got winnable games before they have to go to Cincinnati. They play the Lions twice in the final 3 weeks. But I think they can get there with Josh Dobbs. And they're going to have a very interesting question after the season. Because Dobbs is showing that, this system is very quarterback friendly.
It's not the quarterback, huh?
So, well, it is. But do you have to pay somebody $45, $50 million when you can coach a guy up as quickly as Kevin O'Connell is and get this kind of production? It's just they're going to have an interesting question to resolve after the season.
Credit to you for just rolling through the back half of the schedule. I was like, let me check the schedule.
He's known since the game was released. He knows the whole schedule.
No. Josh Dobbs' story is awesome, but no, they're not going to make the playoffs. Detroit twice, like you said, and Cincinnati. And that's if they win these other games. That's not a guarantee. It's not like we're talking about this dominant team. I think Josh Dobbs, it's an awesome story, but they're going to slip up a time or two in that. Maybe it's the Bears. I don't know. One of these games, And then they're probably going to lose to Detroit twice and to Cincinnati. I don't see them making a play.
That's interesting. You know, Florio is cynical by nature. We know that. Anybody who's spent any time with him.
That to him, huh?
And it's actually kind of miserable watching Minnesota games in the screening room with him. Yeah. He's miserable. I mean, he has these scars, and he's always bringing up plays that happened 30 years ago, and Fran Tarkenton and this. Today he was different.
He was light.
He was different. He was light. He was positive. He was supporting the team. Just it was a different. It's a nice look for you.
I got a good feeling.
Yeah, it's good.
I got a good feeling.
I'm optimistic too. I think they do make the playoffs with Josh Dobbs.
What do you call that? The Dobbs effect?
Dobbs
Is that what you call
the
it?
Dobbs effect. I love it.
Even
That's
on
what's happening
Florio.
on Florio.
Florio.
All right, Kyler Murray will be a Cardinal in 2024.
Too early to tell. I mean, it really is. He played well today, but it's just one game. I think that this new regime, they want to be able to make a decision after the season based upon where they're drafting, consider all factors. We don't know that Monty Austinforth, the GM, or Jonathan Gannon, the head coach, would have wanted Kyler Murray in the first place. There's a lot of coaches out there that would have said 5'10", no, from the get-go. Not our cup of tea. So I think there's still more to be determined. Today is a step in the right direction, but it's just one step. They got a long way to go before they can make that decision.
I think the decision will be made later, too. But if I had to decide right now, I think this team still ends up with a good draft pick. I think he will not be on the Cardinals. I just think as many bad quarterbacks are out there and teams that need quarterbacks, I think they will be enticed if they get a top pick to draft a quarterback and use Kyler Murray to possibly trade and get other draft picks. I can see that happening for the team.
It's a great question. It's the most important question for them. And for me, I think the last half of the season is an audition. He played really well today.
He did.
And they're going to look around and say, huh, look at him. He played well 2 weeks in a row. Hey, we're winning some games. He's providing that spark for our team. And then when you pull back and you look around the league, you say, okay, there are 10 rookie quarterbacks playing. You realize that the teams that have a chance, they have a quarterback. It's as simple as that. Now, you look into the draft. There's a lot of quarterbacks coming out in this draft. Do you want to swap this thing out? But if he plays well down the stretch, he becomes a known quantity for your team, and maybe we can help ourselves somewhere else.
I think that study clause drove a wedge. Remember that from last year in his contract. And also, the Cardinals are the most dysfunctional team in the NFL right now, so you can't predict with any reasonableness what they're going to do. Yeah.
Well, we can tell you, we can predict Week 11. We know that we will be here with Football Night in America. We're going to have the Broncos, the Vikings, the Dobbs effect, the Halo will be right over here.
I'll have my jersey next week. Shoulder pads, helmet.
All right, you guys got to teach me how to play poker because I don't know anything about holding them or folding them. But we're going to figure that out. You guys enjoy the rest of your Week 10, and we will see you at 7 Eastern next Sunday.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.